So we're going to ask our panelists to please come up, and they're going to briefly share one of their favorite stories, anecdotal of course, not hard and fast proof, about what they've seen in their practice, and then we'll take a few questions. So again, we have Dr. Jim Augustine, Mr. Armando Harin, Dr. Judy Peterman, Dr. Carl Blomenkamp, and Dr. Norm Price. I'd love to hear something that you've experienced in your practice.
Let's see, just recently we've had 2 cases of diagnosed pancreatitis walk in. The gentleman is holding a bucket because he was nausea and vomiting for the past 3 or 4 days. And his first biocranial felt tremendously better. He walks in the next morning, no bucket. Pain dramatically reduced by probably 70–80%. Second biocranial, just fine. No symptoms, everything was just great. And also, I wanted to share a second one. We had a 15-year-old boy with asthma who's been on dreadful medication for a lot of years, and I was asthmatic as a child, so I can relate to him. His first biocranial, he came back the next week, and I told him he needs to gradually, if it be his choice to get off the medication because it was costing the parents a fortune, that he'll have to gradually have to speak to his doctor. Well, he did it on his own, and he stopped it immediately, and he has, this has been 5 weeks now, and he's been completely asthma-free, no symptoms whatsoever, stopped the medication cold turkey. His mom was very surprised, and every week she comes in, she says, I still can't believe it, I still can't believe it. So just an amazing story.
I want to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Boyd for this magnificent therapy that he had developed, because for me, every case is an experience. People come to me generally after they have gone through different doctors and have received different treatments, but in the end, it seems like they have no hope. And when you are able to resolve their problems, that really gives you appreciation for what you have, a very valuable tool. Like I say, every case is success, and there are many that I have had, but I will tell you about one little boy that came to me being quadriplegic, without being able to move any of his limbs, without able to have bowel movements, and so on and so forth. And in a matter of 2 months, I would have him moving his legs and his arms, and after the first treatment, being able to go to the bathroom without having to have suppositories or anything of that sort. That's short term, but what happens is when you continue with the therapy, you can see what it does to your system, because after it has resolved the main issues, it continues resolving the minor issues that you might have, and also making the body work efficiently.
My favorite story is my tenant who lives above my office. She had a wall drop on her head while she was at a desk, and several years later she had to have surgery where they put plates in her neck just so she could not deteriorate quite so fast. She was having trouble doing stairs. She'd lost the strength in her arms. She'd lost her peripheral vision. She was just still going downhill fast. I came back from my 4-day cranial training, and she was working for me that day, and she saw people come out of the office, and she said, "Can you do that to me?" And I said, "No way," because she had plates in her neck. And so as she saw a few more patients, and she said, "You sure you can't do that to me?" And I said, "I don't think so." She said, "Well, why don't you call and ask?" So I did. And I was told there are no contraindications, except that it might not work as well. So I made her wait a week until I felt more secure. And holding my breath, I worked on her. And immediately she got her peripheral vision back and her balance. And the next day she came down the stairs with no cane. And that was 5 years ago, and she's doing extremely well. My other story, of course, is my own. Dr. Boyd saved me from a bradyarrhythmia, which was episodic. I would go for 48 hours skipping with a slow heartbeat and skipping 6 or 7 beats every minute or so. So he worked on me once a day for 3 days, and it has never reoccurred.
One of the most amazing things I've seen since I've been practicing biocranial was, I believe it was this month of last year, my wife and I and another lady were on a mission trip to Jamaica, and a family brought an 84-year-old woman into the church that we were working at in a wheelchair. And I kept watching her because if you've ever been in a nursing home, you see these elderly people sitting in wheelchairs just kind of half asleep and just kind of listless. And so when I moved my table down, we picked her up, put her on the table. We couldn't do a lot of those other tests that they did, so I just checked the levels of her ears. And the one ear, the right ear, I believe was more than 2 centimeters lower than the left one. And then looking down from the top, it was more than 2 centimeters further back than the left ear. And when I looked at her feet, her left leg just wouldn't hardly turn at all. It was just pretty much rigid. And so I just went ahead and started doing the procedure. And just within a few seconds, this lady, she starts shouting and praising God and thanking God. And we just went on. And so I finished doing the procedure. And when I was done, I mean, she just laid there. And I thought, gee, she looks so peaceful. And I didn't want to disturb her. And within 10 minutes, my wife said, Carl, look at this. The lady was up out of her wheelchair, her arms on her daughter's shoulders, and she started walking and walked in a circle and then walked to the back of the church. And I'd asked the family later, I said, how long has she been unable to get out of that chair? And they said, a long time. I said, well, what's a long time? We talking days or weeks or months? And she said, Doc, it's been a long time. So that was really an amazing thing that I got to witness because of biocranial.
A great story. Judy, you reminded me when you told your story of coming home and working on the lady on the plates. I wasn't going to tell this story, but it reminded me of a young woman that I was working with who had Lyme disease. And I had been doing some therapies with her prior to having my biocranial training. And she was actually ordering bees to do bee sting therapy on herself. So she would get these bees and have them sting her, among other things. And I remember when she came in on the Monday following my biocranial training, she had raging neuropathy in both lower extremities. Her legs were on fire. And I gave her a biocranial treatment, and later, the next morning, there was a phone message for me of her telling me that by the time she had gotten to her car, that the neuropathy was totally gone. I got a phone call the next day from the same woman saying that the stomach problems that she was having, that she hadn't told me about, had also resolved on their own. And that was the first day back from my biocranial training. So that was pretty exciting as a new practitioner to do that. But probably my all-time favorite story is a young girl named Jasmine who was 11 years old, and I'm from Southern California, and I was doing what we call a biocranial preview, introducing doctors to the process and actually working on different people. And a young girl was brought to me by a doctor who was in attendance there, and I didn't know what her problem was. They just asked if I could work on the children. Well, evidently what had happened was on the way home, we were in Palm Springs, which is about a 2-hour drive from LA. And on the way home, she started crying in the back seat of the car. And they pulled the car over to the side of the road on Interstate 10, wondering what in the world was wrong with this young girl. Well, evidently, during birth, there had been a traumatic brainstem injury which had affected her vision. And out of her right eye, she could only see black and white and very fuzzy. She could see no color. But by the time they were halfway home to LA, she now could see color out of her right eye, and her vision was clearer. And within about a week, she was actually able to close her good eye, which was her left eye, and do moderately fine motor coordinated movements using only what previously she could just see black and white, almost shadows out of.
that was pretty amazing, and that's my all-time favorite story.